Matthew, is the track closed?
It should be.
Matt Overton, if you're trying to talk, nobody can hear you.
Can anybody else hear Matthew?
Nope.
No negatory.
I don't see him lighting his name up or anything.
Okay, here we go.
Hey.
We're crying out loud. Hey, JT, welcome to the race. Everyone get off the track, please. You're well behind time. Hammer's coming out, Gilles and Steven.
Good. I was
Thank
just
you
trying to
very much.
load up the brief.
There you go. Well done. Darn microphone. Anyways, guys, glad to have you here. Nice to see 22 drivers out today, and interesting split. Lots of GTs. So time to gang up on the hypers, I guess. So should be a great race. Looked like lots of interesting racing last week, and so we've got our 90 minutes this week, preceded by 20 minutes of qualifying, 10 minutes for the for the GTs, and then 10 minutes for the hypercars. Normal deal. At 1 minute warning will be given for the GTs as we wind down to 10 minutes. Then at 30 seconds, the hypers can start lining up. And at 10 minutes, they are released. The GTs that are on a flying lap still at that 10-minute mark can finish it off, but you can't go around after you pass the start finish once it's past 10 minutes. So the hypercars, you might have a couple of GTs that are late on the that are very close to line. So just let them finish their lap before you start hammering around at them. Be careful with them, please. They're still on the flying. As we talked about, and then we'll have a 5-minute warm up, and then we're off to racing. 90 minutes. It will have 94 minutes on the clock. It does. We have 4 minutes for a pace lap. So that, as described, we start off a standing start. When the lights go out, the hypercars move off, and then the GT leader delay the start just to give a 5 to second car gap to the back of the hypercar field, and then we'll go around in pairs. Everyone just take their time. It's to get us around the start finish, so we have a good clean start by class, and it's going to be by class when the class leader crosses the start finish line, so that when the first hypercar pair cross the start finish line, the hypercars start racing, and the same thing for the GTs. As the lead GT pair comes to the start finish line, they can accelerate and start racing as a field. If during the pace lap, and 4 minutes is lots of time, you lose your place for whatever reason, you have an off or something goes wrong, join at the back of your class if you can do so safely, hypercars. And if you can't join at the back of your class, it's at the back of the field. So GTs, you get one kick at the cat, and that's you go to the back of your class if you lose your place. Hypercars, if you can get back in smoothly, fine. Otherwise,
welcome to NARS Virtual Modern Sports Car Championship. Round 10 presented by Champion Motorsport and Storm Gang Simulation. Track temperature 38 degrees, and it's dry out there for now.
The back of the hypercars before we start in the grid, so that you don't have to wind your way through everybody. Okay. And I'll do the same thing for anyone else.
Pretty sure I gotta do a drive-through.
Pardon me?
So pretty sure I need to do a drive-through.
I won't argue with you. Okay. Orange zone days from the start to the exit of T12, which is the old oak tree there. So just remember, you are racing. Just take a little bit of care. Heavy cars, cold tires, and it's a pretty tricky track. If you do get called out for a problem and the stewards find your guilt, you'll get a heavier penalty than otherwise. I am the admin, so I can clear up DQs prior to the race session, but after that, everyone's racing, including me. So just get on with your penalties and take them like a driver. Serve them in the normal RF2 process, and away you go. Make sure that as we're traveling on here, if you do get a penalty from this race, it'll be added to your finishing time. Okay, if you get a DNF or a DQ for this race, for the reasons you're racing, you'll have to serve the penalty at the next race in which you race, and you'll have to do that actually doing as Norm mentioned, a drive-through. Blue flag. Really be aware of the blue flags here. It is going to happen quite a lot, I think, with this particular track. And there's some great places to make your pass, and there's some bad places. As always, the lapping car doesn't get a free pass, has to wait, pick the time properly to do a pass, make a good pass on the car in front. The car that's getting the blue flag, don't obstruct or block, but don't get out of the way either. Don't do anything weird. Do your line. Be a good driver. Work your piece, and let the other driver get around you. Just respect each other's race. So we're good there. I think we're getting better at that. Just remember everyone should be clear here where the hypercars can get through over the GT3s. Track limits are pretty straightforward. They're enforced by RF2. You will get warnings from RF2 if you have problems. And even if you get penalties from RF2 and you get penalty points and then you get a penalty, repeated violations in the same places you're competing, someone could be eligible for an IR. They can put that in on you. And then you could also get a steward penalty in addition to anything RF2 does for you. So just stay on the track. I think everyone's clear about using relative boxes and spotters. Make sure that you get back on track smoothly. Don't come at right angles. Make an angle of it. Make sure it's clear around you and get back in smoothly so you don't impede other people. Pit's pretty straightforward. When you're coming out of the final corner, stay to the right, get to the pit limiter line, and you go. Make sure you travel through the fast lane and then not the pit boxes, and then pit close to the wall regardless of whether you're sharing a stall or not. You may not know it, so just stay on the right. On the pit exit, stay right and join the racing surface to join the race prior to T1 on the right. Just be aware of the traffic around you. And the drivers on a racing lap, be aware of traffic coming out. Watch what's going on. They are permitted to get back in, so give them a car with the racing room on the right. Don't squeeze them out by pushing over. You shouldn't be anyway, because that's not the right place for the fastest line. Pitting's your own bit, 60 km/h speed limit, so don't forget about the pit speed limiter. And everyone, I think, is clear on the golden rule when you're competing to be fair and clean with people. And if you do think things went wrong, slow down safely, as quickly as you can, let them get back ahead of you, and then get back to racing. Don't worry about day night. And as always, if you hit escape, the race is over. So it's Control Delete or Alt F4 or disconnect your cable, close back RF2 and join if you have a problem and you want to try and get back into the race. You'll be a couple laps down, but you can still race for points. Okay. Any questions?
Got one for you, Matt. I forgot. Once a driver passes start finish line, does it start for everyone or just
by class? Hypers start as a class when the first pair goes across the start finish line, and then the GTs start as a class when the first GT pair goes across.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
No problem. All right. Nothing further. We'll go to the next session. 10 minutes for GTs, 10 minutes for the hypers after that, and I will ask JT, would you please be the verbal as well as the, I've got it on the text, but if you just do the 1 minute and 30 second, that'd be very appreciated. Thank you. And welcome back from your travels.
How was your track date?
Fantastic.
Excellent. That's always good to hear. Don't forget, mic's off the call.
Welcome to NARS Virtual Modern Sports Car Championship, round 10, presented by Champion Motorsport and Storm Gang Simulation. Practice done. Qualifying begins, 19 minutes to set a time. Track temperature 28 degrees, and it's dry out there for now. Our cameras on Stephen Miller in the LMGT3A. On board with Max Sunderlap in the LMGT3. Our cameras on Jerry Chen in the LMGT3. Stephen Miller keeps provisional pole in LMGT3 AM after that lap. On board with Ryan Corbett Reyes in the LMGT3. No improvement for Tom Mazzella in LMGT3 AM, stays P4. Matthew Overton stays P5 in LMGT3 after that lap. That's the quickest Sector 1 we've seen Ryan Corbett Reyes. On board with Olivier Gervais in the LMGT3M. The camera settles on Stephen Miller in the LMGT3M. On board with Eric Jacobs in the LMGT3. On board with Jerry Chen in the LMGT3.
Alan Holden fastest in LMGT3 with a 1:43.0. LMGT3 out. Stephen Miller tops the time 1:44.8. That's 0.65 quicker than Olivier Gervais. Riding on board with Ryan Corbett Reyes in the LMGT3. Alan Holden switched to P2 in LMGT3 as Eric James Bowler's moved up to P5 in class 1:45.1. Paul Gibson lights up sector 1, 34.6, quickest of the lot and a personal best. 35.7 first sector for Frank Radowski, 0.3 seconds at the fastest so far, a personal best. Matthew Overton cannot improve in LMGT3, remains P8. Eric Jacobs continues to improve through sector 1. No improvement for Ryan Reyes in LMGT3, stays P6. On board with Alan Holden in the LMGT3. Trackside with Stephen Miller in the LMGT3 AM. Eric Jacobs goes to 10. LMGT3 leader, Michael Locke, 142.5. That's 0.26 quicker than Eric Jacobs.
Onboard camera on Ryan Talbot Reyes in the LMGT3. Olivier Gervais tops the first sector with a 35.3, quickest so far and up on his own best. Our cameras on Eric Jacobs in the LMGT3. In LMGT3, Ryan Talbot Reyes goes fastest with a 1:42.4. That's 0.25 quicker than Michael Locke. Our cameras on Michael Locke in the LMGT3. Good first sector for Matthew Overton, a 35.3. 1.1 seconds off the fastest, but a personal best. Olivier Gervais sets a personal best through Sector 1. Our cameras on Ryan Talbot Reyes and the LMGT3. Frank Radowski stays P4 in LMGT3 and after that lap. In LMGT3 AM, Stephen Miller tops the times, 1:43.9. The camera settles on Eric Jacobs in the LMGT3. Frank Radowski through Sector 1 in 35.6, 0.1 seconds off the quickest but a personal best. That's Matthew Overton's best Sector 1 of the session.
34.3 for Michael Locke through Sector 1, the quickest anyone has managed and a personal best. Cameras holding this shot. Set your watch by Frank Radowski's lap time.
Matthew Overton cannot improve in LMGT3, remains P7. Minutes to go. Daniel Kirby on a hot lap. Out on a flyer, Johnny Gutierrez. The camera settles on Michael Locke in the LMGT3. Riding on board with Alan Holding in the LMGT3. Our cameras on Johnny Gutierrez in the hypercar. On board with Norm Graf in the hypercar AM. On board with Gilles Lalonde in the hypercar AM. Our cameras on Lanny Hall in the hypercar AM. On board with Carl Struhol in the hypercar AM. No improvement for Daniel Kirby in hypercar, stays P2. Our cameras on Daniel Kirby in the hypercar. Camera settles on Johnny Gutierrez in the hypercar. Our cameras on Norm Graf in the hypercar AM. Our cameras on Gilles Lalonde in the hypercar AM. Our cameras on Carl Struhol in the hypercar AM. Fastest sector 1 of the session, Daniel Kirby. Staying with this one. JT Tummy improves in hypercar with a 1:33.4. Carl Struhol goes P5 in a hypercar AM, 1:37.7. Sector 1 for J. Tummy, 31.6, 0.5 seconds off the class best, but a personal best. A 32.4 first sector for Lanny Hall, 0.7 seconds off the fastest so far, and a personal best. On board with J. Tommy in the hypercar. On board with Lanny Hall in the hypercar AM. Riding on board with Carl Struhol in the hypercar AM. Daniel Kirby tops the sector 3 times. JT Tommy improves in Sector 1 under pressure from Johnny Gutierrez for P2 in class. 3 minutes remaining. A new personal best Sector 1 there for Lanny Hall, chasing Norm Graf for P1 in class. Sector 1 improvement for Karl Struhal. Gilles Lalonde lights up Sector 1, 31.4, quickest of the lot and a personal best. The camera lingers here. The camera settles on Karl Struhal in the hypercar AM. Daniel Kirby sets a personal best through Sector 2. Riding on board with Lanny Hall in the hypercar AM. Hypercar AM leader, Gilles Lalonde, 131.3. A new personal best Sector 1 there for Karl Struhal. Norm Graf improves his first sector to 31.3, a personal best. Good first sector for Gilles Lalonde, a 31.3, a fraction off the fastest, but a personal best. Still riding on board. Riding on board with Gilles Lalonde in the hypercar AM, on board with Daniel Kirby in the hypercar. On board with Johnny Gutierrez in the hypercar. Nobody quicker than Gilles Lalonde in Sector 2, under pressure from Norm Graf for P1 in class. Lanny Hall, 31.9 in Sector 1. 0.7 seconds shy of the quickest, but up on his own best. Daniel Kirby stays P2 in hypercar after that lap. Onboard camera on Lanny Hall in the hypercar AM. Our camera's on JT Tommy in the hypercar. Sector 1 for Daniel Kirby, 30.5, up on his own best, holding on this car. One minute left in the session. Lanny Hall moves up to P3 in class, 133.6. JT Tommy cannot improve in hypercar, remains P3, trackside with Karl Struhal in the hypercar AM. Trackside with Johnny Gutierrez in the hypercar. In hypercar, Daniel Kirby goes fastest with a 130.7. The camera settles on JT Tummy in the hypercar. Hypercar qualifying done, and around 2.3 seconds separates pole from the slowest classified runner. In hypercar AM, pole to the back of the field is about 3.5 seconds. And here is how the LMGT3 grid lines up, covered by just 3.4 seconds. LMGT3 AM qualifying done, and around 4.9 seconds separates pole from the slowest classified runner. Hypercar, provisionally, Daniel Kirby in the number 24 Ferrari Ford Hurry 499P on pole with 130.7, Johnny Gutierrez second, JT Tummy third. Now for Hypercar AM. As it stands, Gilles Lalonde in the number 3 Cadillac V Series. R Evo takes pole with 131.3. Norm Graf and Lanny Hall complete the top 3.
Okay, for a second there, I thought we were going to have a couple caddies at the top of the hypercars, but instead, no, it's Daniel just taking it by a strong margin over Johnny with a nice fight at the end, and Gilles taking the top of the hypercar AMs. Well done. Mika Locke and Ryan Paulbert Ray's up top there at the LMGT3s. Mika taking the pole. And then we've got Stephen Miller taking another pole. Another strong performance there by Stephen to take the pole on the AM side. So nicely done. And I just noticed we've got 8
warm-up session
hypercars.
underway.
So once we go over to
20
the warm-up,
minutes
I'll
to
move,
prepare. Qualifying
Chad
complete.
up to position 8, and that means we'll have nice even grid to start with. And it is, although it says 10 minutes, it is 5 minutes. So we'll be going to race at the 5-minute mark on the warm-up, guys.
You're watching NARS Virtual Modern Sports Car Championship Round 10 in association with Champion Motorsports and Storm Gang Simulation. In LMGT3, provisional pole to Mika Locke in the number 2 Porsche 911 GT3 9923 with 142.1. Ryan Paulbert Reyes in the number 22 Porsche 91 GT3 911 GT3 1992 with 142.4. Max Sunthorlap in the number 6 Ford Mustang Evo GT3 third with 142.7. LMGT3 AM, provisionally. Stephen Miller in the number 424 McLaren 720S Evo on pole with 143.9. Olivier Gervais second, James Bowders third. The camera finds Stephen Miller in the LMGT3 AM. Clear and dry to begin, 23 degrees ambient. Our cameras on Tom Nacella in the LMGT3 AM. Our cameras on Daryl Kruger in the LMGT3 AM. The camera settles on Gilles Lalonde in the hypercar AM.
Much rear bias.
tracking Stephen Miller in the LMGT3 AM. Riding on board with Norm Graf in the hypercar AM. On board with Chad Gratius in the hypercar AM.
Oh no, I'm sorry to hear about that, Ryan. That's bad news. I know what that feels like, and I live with someone who lives it all the time. Okay, everybody, we're going to switch over. So hands off the wheel, please, and we will get to the next session and go for a race. Make sure you
Onboard camera on Gilles Lalonde in the hypercar AM. That's the end of the warm-up.
Is Ryan coming back?
No, he's got a bad migraine, and it just hit, so he's not going to be racing, unfortunately.
Roger.
Do we leave an empty spot on the grid?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Where was he again?
He was second in the GTs. There may or may not be a spot there since he left, but we'll see.
Daniel Kirby under pressure from Johnny Gutierrez for the class lead.
Nice and easy off, everybody.
Welcome along to NARS Virtual Modern Sports Car Championship for round 10. Our coverage is supported by Champion Motorsport and Storm Gang Simulation. They're away. 21 cars now racing. 93 minutes at VIR full course.
Stalled car, stalled car.
Hypercar AM. LMGT3, LMGT3
Lenny,
AM.
just join back up at the
Sorry
back,
about that,
please.
guys.
Can't get it to start.
Take his time.
Yeah, you got time.
Are you still leaving the grid spot for Ryan, or are you closing down?
You leave it.
So Lenny, you'll be starting with the GTs, not with the hypercars, okay?
I'm sorry, say again?
Lanny, that's Lanny Paul. He'll be starting with the GTs, not with the hypercars.
Three cars scrapping over P3. Paul Ibbotson, Eric Jacobs and Alan Holden.
Matthew, you're moving forward too much.
Paul Ibbotson still chasing Eric Jacobs for third in class.
I'm behind Paul.
You should be in 15th, no?
I'm behind Paul.
Good conditions to start with,
Right start.
dry track and 26 degrees on the surface.
And Alan needs to get a wiggle on.
Matt, where did you quali?
Behind Paul? On the grid.
Matt, M-A-C-K. He's on
Mac.
the lap.
What's that?
Where did you qualify? Aren't you P2?
No, I qualified third.
Yeah, so there's
Oh,
a
okay.
gap inside the leader. Okay, everybody, coming up to the
Actually,
final
there was
run in.
no gap.
So mic's off. Everyone can be lined up. Have a great start. Remember, it's by class. And we'll see you at
On
the
board with
winner's
Stephen
circle at
Miller,
the end.
catching the LMGT3 of Paul Ibbotson.
Did you qualify ahead of me, Matthew?
I think not.
I did not, but I'm behind Paul.
You should be in 15th, not 13th.
Who's behind me?
Oliver.
Me.
Three cars scrapping over P3. Alan Holden, Eric Jacobs and Paul Ibbotson.
Because we've got a GT up.
Alan Holden fights back, holds P5 in LMGT3. Here's Alan Holden's pass on Paul Ibbotson in LMGT3. Three cars scrapping over P1, Norm Graf, Gilles Lalonde and Chad Gutierrez. Back live in Hypercar Am, and Norm Graf is right in the thick of it. Gilles Lalonde right on the gearbox, wheel to wheel, 0.6 seconds back. On board now, catching the hypercar of G. Temi. Here's that hypercar Am passed by Chad Gutierrez on Norm Graf. Nose to tail, Chad Gutierrez and Carl Struhl in the pack. Back live in Hypercar, JT Tami now P3. On board with JT Tami, chasing Johnny Gutierrez for second. In Hypercar, Daniel Kirby tops the times 1:38.0. Here's something interesting we missed. And we're back live, Hypercar Am, Gilles Lalonde right in the mix. On board with Gilles Lalonde, catching the hypercar of J. Tami. Our camera's on Frank Radosti in the LMGT3 Am. While the action has quieted down, let's revisit an earlier moment. Max Something Lap, all over Alan Holden for third. And we're back live, Hypercar, JT Tami up to P3. On board with J. Tami, hunting Johnny Gutierrez for second. LMGT3 leader. Alan Holden, 144.7. That's 0.0 quicker than Eric Jacobs. Stephen Miller closing on the LMGT3 of Matthew Overton. On board with Gilles Arond, reeling in the hypercar of J. Tommy. Let's look back at something we missed earlier. We rejoin the LMGT3 order, Micah Lock in a fast-changing fight. Micah Lock all over Eric Jacobs for the lead. Trouble for Paul Ibbotson in LMGT3. Paul Ibbotson all over Jerry Chen for 6th. Paul Ibbotson still slipping. P7 in class now, down from 5th in class. The track temperature has moved to 28 degrees. Trackside with Eric Jacobs in the LMGT3. Lanny Hall works past the LMGT3 of Alan Holden. Here's something interesting we missed. Closing on the hypercar AM of Lanny Hall. Lanny Hall has problems in hypercar AM. Backliv in LMGT3 and Michael Lock is right in the thick of it. On board with Michael Lock, chasing Eric Jacobs for the lead. Eric Jacobs has found some pace in the last few laps. Matthew Overton all over Max Somethinglap for 4th. Let's see what happened. Lanny Hall closing on the LMGT3 AM of James Bowders. We rejoin the LMGT3 action, Michael Lock running P2. On board with Michael Lock, hunting Eric Jacobs for the lead. Issues for Chad Grottiers in Hypercar AM. Chad Grottiers still chasing Carl Struhol for 2nd in class. While the action has quieted down, let's revisit an earlier moment. James Bowders closing on the LMGT3 of Jerry Chen. And we're back live, LMGT3 AM, Tom Nazella right in the mix. The gap is stretching out for Johnny Gutierrez. Daryl Kruger is faster in, but Paul Ibbotson gets the better exit from the first and final sectors. JT Tammy on the move in hypercar, up to P2. G Tammy is in trouble in hypercar. Here's the replay. LMGT3 Paul Ibbotson in trouble. We rejoin the LMGT3 order, Eric Jacobs in a fast-changing fight. The camera finds Eric Jacobs in the LMGT3. We were elsewhere. Lanny Hall stopped on track on lap 5. Lanny Hall closing on the LMGT3 AM of Stephen Miller. Back live in LMGT3 AM, and Stephen Miller is right in the thick of it. Lanny Hall right with the LMGT3 Max something like now. On board with Olivier Gervais chasing Stephen Miller for the lead. Olivier Gervais has had over a minute of this duel and still no way through. On board with Michael Locke, still after Eric Jacobs for the lead. Michael Locke still in the fight for the class lead, second lap of this scrap. On board with Paul Ibbotson in the LMGT3. Chad Grasses had a significant problem on lap 6. Here's what we missed. And we're back live, Hypercar AM. Gilles Lalonde right in the mix. Trackside with Gilles Lalonde in the Hypercar AM. On board with Stephen Miller, catching the LMGT3 of Matthew Overton. Gilles Lalonde has problems in Hypercar AM. Here's the replay. We rejoin the LMGT3 AM order, Frank Radosti in a fast-changing fight. Let's look back at when Lanny Hall came to a halt on lap 4. Back live in LMGT3 AM, and Olivier Gervais is right in the thick of it. Our cameras on Olivier Gervais in the LMGT3 AM, Alan Holden and Jerry Chen trading advantages through the first and final sectors. In the cockpit with Gilles Lalonde in the hypercar AM. Watch the incident. And we're back live, LMGT3, Jerry Chen right in the mix. Jerry Chen closing on the LMGT3 AM of Olivier Gervais. While we were elsewhere, Johnny Gutierrez stopped on track on lap 7. Issues for Tom Nacella in LMGT3 AM. We rejoin the LMGT3 AM order, Frank Radosti in a fast changing fight. Conditions on the change, track temperature now 31 degrees. The camera settles on Frank Radosti in the LMGT3 AM. On board with Jerry Chen, catching the LMGT3 AM of Olivier Gervais. Jerry Chen consistently faster through the first sector. Matthew Overton closing on the LMGT3 AM of Frank Radosti. Lanny Hall had a significant problem on lap 5. Here's what we missed. Back live in LMGT3 AM, and Frank Radosti is right in the thick of it. Trackside with Frank Radosti in the LMGT3 AM. Our cameras on Chad Gratias in the hypercar AM. Let's see what happened. Back live in hypercar AM, Gilles Lalonde now P4. On board with Gilles Lalonde chasing Norm Graf for third. Lanny Hall is making time through the middle sector. Let's look back at when James Bowders came to a halt on lap 6. And we're back live, LMGT3 AM. Darrell Kruger right in the mix. The camera settles on Darrell Kruger in the LMGT3 AM. And still right there in the thick of it. Second lap of this scrap. Darrell Kruger with the entry, Tom Nacella with the exit at the first and final sectors. LMGT3 and Tom Nacella in trouble. On the replay now. And we're back live, hypercar, JT Tammy up to P2. While we were elsewhere, Gilles Lalonde stopped on track on lap 9. We'll rejoin the hypercar action, Daniel Kirby running P1. The camera settles on Daniel Kirby in the hypercar. Trouble for Alan Holden in LMGT3. Jerry Chen started P7 in LMGT3 and has worked up to P4, 3 places made. And Tom Nacella drops out of the race from P5 in LMGT3 AM. On board with Gilles Lalonde, hunting Norm Graf for third. Norm Graf moves into P1 in Hypercar AM. Gilles Lalonde has dropped 2 spots in Hypercar AM since P1, now down to P3. Issues for Gilles Lalonde in Hypercar AM. Here's the replay. Back live in Hypercar AM, Lanny Hall now P5. Let's look back at something we missed earlier. We'll rejoin the LMGT3 AM order, Frank Radosti in a fast changing fight. On board with Frank Radosti, catching the LMGT3 of Matthew Overton. LMGT3 Matthew Overton in trouble. Let's see what happened. And we're back live, hypercar, JT Tammy up to P1, riding on board with J Tammy in the hypercar. Lead change in hypercar AM, Carl Struble is now P1. The camera settles on Norm Graf in the hypercar AM. Daniel Kirby takes the lead in hypercar. On board with Lanny Hall, chasing Gilles Lalonde for fourth. Here's something interesting we missed. Back live in LMGT3 and Micah Locke is right in the thick of it. Trackside with Micah Locke in the LMGT3. Trackside with Norm Graf in the hypercar AM. Chad Grutias had a significant problem on lap 16. Here's what we missed. We rejoin the LMGT3 AM action, Stephen Miller running P2. Our camera's on Stephen Miller in the LMGT3 AM. By Jerry Chen and into clear air. Jerry Chen has problems in LMGT3. Jerry Chen still under pressure from Paul Ibbotson for 5th in class. Great progress from Paul Ibbotson. Now P5 in LMGT3. On the replay now. Back live in hypercar, JT Tammy now P2. Let's look back at when Jerry Chen came to a halt on lap 16. we're back live. Hypercar Daniel Kirby up to P1. Riding on board with Daniel Kirby in the hypercar. Issues for Matthew Overton in LMGT3. Watch the incident. We rejoin the hypercar AM action. Gilles Lalonde running P5. On board was Gilles Lalonde, catching the LMGT3 of Micah Locke. While the action has quieted down, let's revisit an earlier moment. And we're back live, LMGT3 AM. Darrell Kruger right in the mix. Trackside with Darrell Kruger in the LMGT3 AM. Up one place from his P4 start in LMGT3, Alan Holden now runs P3. Can he hold on to this podium spot? While we were elsewhere, Matthew Overton stopped on track on lap 17. We rejoin the LMGT3 AM order, Darrell Kruger in a fast changing fight. The camera finds Darrell Kruger in the LMGT3 AM. Meanwhile, Matthew Overton pitting from P6 in LMGT3.
Slow car, damaged car going into the S's.
LMGT3 AM Frank Radosti in trouble. Here's the replay. Back live in hypercar, Daniel Kirby now P1. Trackside with Daniel Kirby in the hypercar.
Slow damaged car, oak tree.
That's where Daniel Kirby is making time through the first sector. Frank Radosti had a significant problem on lap 19. Here's what we missed.
Damaged car heading
And we're back live. Hypercar JT Tommy up to P2. Conditions getting warmer. 22 degrees in the air.
Track clear.
Frank Radosti moves into P1 in LMGT3M. On board with Norm Graf, chasing Carl Struhol for the lead. Michael Lock has taken the LMGT3 lead. Norm Graf, still in the fight for the class lead. Second lap of this scrap. Chad Gratius has the edge on entry to the first sector. Nothing between them. And we have a new LMGT3 AM leader, Olivier Gervais. Carl Struhol under pressure from Norm Graf for the class lead. Carl Struhol, still in the fight for the class lead, second lap of this scrap. Chad Gratius breaking deeper into the first sector. In LMGT3M, Olivier Gervais goes fastest with a 1:45.7. Norm Graf all over Carl Struhol for the lead. Times are coming down for Karl Struhol. Watch the braking into the first sector. Chad Gratias is later there. On the replay now. We rejoin the hypercar AM action. Norm Graf running P2. On board with Norm Graf hunting Karl Struhol for the lead. Matthew Overton has problems in LMGT3. Our cameras on Matthew Overton in the LMGT3. Let's look back at when Olivier Gervais came to a halt on lap 22. Back within LMGT3, Eric Jacobs now P2. Tracking Eric Jacobs in the LMGT3. The camera finds Johnny Gutierrez in the hypercar. While we were elsewhere, Matthew Overton stopped on track on lap 22. Back live in Hypercar AM and Karl Struhol is right in the thick of it. The camera finds Karl Struhol in the Hypercar AM. Karl Struhol extending the lead. Norm Graf brakes later. Chad Gratias exits faster at the first and final sectors. Max Sonfenlap holding P3, under pressure from Alan Holden for P3 and fast. Karl Struhol still in the fight for the class lead, third lap of the scrap. Chad Grottiers carries more speed through the middle sector. Still no way through. Riding on board with Paul Ibbotson in the LMGT3. Let's look back at something we missed earlier. And we're back live, Hypercar and Norm Graf right in the mix. Norm Graf still hounding Karl Struhol for the lead. Into the Hypercar Am lead. Norm Graf holds P1 in Hypercar Am. Chad Grottiers has climbed 3 spots in Hypercar Am since P5 to currently sit at P2. Our camera's on Alan Holden in the LMGT3. On board with Olivier Gervais, catching the LMGT3 of Alan Holden. Quicker laps now from Alan Holden. Olivier Gervais and Paul Ibbotson trading time through the first and final sectors. Olivier Gervais still won't give up this fight. Cameras holding this shot. Alan Holden has found some pace in the last few laps. Paul Ibbotson has the advantage through the middle sector. On board with Olivier Gervais, reeling in the LMGT3 of Alan Holden. JT Tummy moves into P1 in hypercar. Alan Holden is getting into a rhythm now. So close, neither giving an inch. The middle sector is where Paul Ibbotson is quicker. Retirement for Eric Jacobs out of the LMGT3 race from P2. Trouble for Paul Ibbotson in LMGT3. Watch the incident. We rejoin the LMGT3 AM order, Stephen Miller in a fast changing fight. Eric Jacobs has been quicker, pulling away. Paul Ibbotson climbs one position to P4 in LMGT3. Stephen Miller and Paul Ibbotson trading advantages through the first and final sectors. On board with Olivier Gervais, closing on the LMGT3 of Alan Holden. Here's something interesting we missed. On board with Paul Ibbotson, catching the LMGT3 AM of Stephen Miller. And we're back live, LMGT3 and Olivier Gervais up to P1. On board with Olivier Gervais, catching the LMGT3 of Alan Holden. On board with Paul Ibbotson, reeling in the LMGT3 AM of Stephen Miller. Alan Holden, closing on the LMGT3 AM of Olivier Gervais. Stephen Miller is quicker through the first sector. Our camera is on Stephen Miller in the LMGT3 AM. Issues for Eric Jacobs in LMGT3. Let's see what happened. Frank Radosti has problems in LMGT3 AM. Back live in LMGT3 and Paul Ibbotson is right in the thick of it. On board with Paul Ibbotson, closing on the LMGT3 AM for Stephen Miller. Eric Jacobs had a significant problem on lap 29. Here's what we missed. We rejoin the LMGT3 action. Paul Ibbotson running P4. On board with Paul Ibbotson, catching the LMGT3 AM of Stephen Miller. Trackside with GT Tami in the hypercar. While the action has quieted down, let's revisit an earlier moment. Back live in hypercar AM, Chad Gratias now P2. The camera settles on Chad Gratias in the hypercar AM. The camera finds Gilles Roland in the hypercar AM. Onboard camera on Norm Graf in the hypercar AM. Hypercar and Laddie Hall in trouble. Here's the replay. And we're back live. Hypercar, Johnny Gutierrez up to P3. Let's look back at something we missed earlier. We rejoin the hypercar action, Daniel Kirby running P1. The camera finds Jay Tammy in the hypercar. Let's look back at when Norm Graf came to a halt on lap 36. Back, live in LMGT3 AM. Olivier Gervais now P1. The camera settles on Olivier Gervais in the LMGT3 AM. Issues for Gilles Lalonde in Hypercar AM. On board once more with Gilles Lalonde in the Hypercar AM. Our camera's on Max Sunkenlap in the LMGT3. While we were elsewhere, Gilles Lalonde stopped on track on lap 35. And we're back live, LMGT3, Paul Ibbotson right in the mix. Paul Ibbotson closing on the LMGT3 AM of Frank Radosti. The first sector is where Eric Jacobs pulls away. Different approaches at the first and final sectors. Frank Radosti carries more speed, Paul Ibbotson accelerates harder. In Hypercar, Daniel Kirby tops the times, 1:32.4. Here's something interesting we missed. And we're back live, LMGT3. Paul Ibbotson up to P4. On board with Paul Ibbotson, catching the LMGT3 AM of Frank Radosti. Lead change in Hypercar AM. Carl Struhol is now P1. Onboard camera on Daniel Kirby in the hypercar. Quicker laps now from Daniel Kirby. Gilles Lalonde had a significant problem on lap 37. Here's what we missed. We rejoin the hypercar action. JT Tammy running P2. Tracking JT Tammy in the hypercar. Daniel Kirby is pulling away, gap up by 4.1 seconds. Chad Gratias has problems in hypercar. On board with Chad Gratias, chasing Carl Struhal for the lead. That's where Chad Gratias is making time through the first sector. In the cockpit with Daniel Kirby in the hypercar. Let's look back at when Frank Radasti came to a halt on lap 35. Back live in hypercar, JT Tammy now P2. Onboard camera on JT Tammy in the hypercar. Camera settles on Max Sunfenlap in the LMGT3. Hypercar Am Lamy Hall in trouble on the replay now. And we're back live, hypercar, Daniel Kirby up to P1. While the action has quieted down, let's revisit an earlier moment. We rejoin the hypercar action, JT Tammy running P2. Warming up out there. Ambient now, 22 degrees. Stephen Miller has taken the LMGT3 AM lead. Chad Gratias moves into P1 in hypercar AM. Hypercar leader. Johnny Gutierrez 132.3, that's 0.11 quicker than Daniel Kirby. Riding on board with Johnny Gutierrez in the hypercar. Let's look back at something we missed earlier. Issues for Matthew Overton in LMGT3. Back live in hypercar, Daniel Kirby, now P1. Camera finds Daniel Kirby in the hypercar. Tracking Johnny Gutierrez in the hypercar. Johnny Gutierrez has cut the gap by 3.0 seconds. Trackside with Chad Gratias in the hypercar AM. Lead change in LMGT3 AM. Olivier Gervais is now P1 while we were elsewhere. Matthew Overton stopped on track on lap 36. And we're back live, hypercar, Daniel Kirby up to P1, tracking Daniel Kirby in the hypercar. Daniel Kirby brakes later. Jake Tammy exits faster at the first and final sectors. Trackside with Max Sonderlap in the LMGT3. Here's something interesting we missed. We rejoin the LMGT3 action, Michael Lock running P1, on board with Michael Lock in the LMGT3. The camera finds Frank Radosti in the LMGT3 AM. Daryl Kruger started P6 in LMGT3 AM and has worked up to P3, 3 places made. Can he hold on to this podium spot? Norm Graf has the advantage at the first sector. And we have a new hypercar leader, Jake Tummy. Max Sunterlap has problems in LMGT3. Watch the incident. Back, live in LMGT3 and Olivier Gervais now P1. Chad Grottias takes the lead in Hypercar Am. While the action has quieted down, let's revisit an earlier moment. And we're back live, Hypercar, JT Tummy up to P1. The camera finds Mike Alloc in the LMGT3. Matthew Overton had a significant problem on lap 40. Here's what we missed. We rejoin the LMGT3 AM action, Olivier Gervais running P1. Trackside with Olivier Gervais in the LMGT3 AM. Hypercar and Norm Graf in trouble. Let's see what happened. Trouble for Alan Holden in LMGT3. Back live in LMGT3. Alan Holden now P3. Let's look back at when Max Sunfenlap came to a halt on lap 42. And we're back live. Hypercar, Daniel Kirby up to P1. Our cameras on Daniel Kirby in the hypercar. GT Tommy is quicker on the power out of the final sector. Our cameras on Stephen Miller in the LMGT3 AM. Stephen Miller has found some pace in the last few laps. Stephen Miller in the LMGT3 AM, closing on the LMGT3 of Paul Ibbotson. While we were elsewhere, Normgraf stopped on track on lap 48. We rejoin the LMGT3 AM action, Stephen Miller running P2. On board with Stephen Miller, catching the LMGT3 of Paul Ibbotson. On board with Eric Jacobs, catching the LMGT3 AM of Frank Radosti. Max Sunfenlap had a significant problem on lap 42. Here's what we missed. We rejoin the LMGT3 AM order. Frank Radosti in a fast changing fight. Frank Radosti closing on the LMGT3 of Eric Jacobs. The times are coming down for Eric Jacobs. On board with Stephen Miller, reeling in the LMGT3 of Paul Ibbotson. Matthew Overton has problems in LMGT3. On the replay now. Back live in LMGT3 and Stephen Miller now P2. Let's look back at when Alan Holden came to a halt on lap 44. And we're back live, LMGT3 AM, Stephen Miller up to P2. On board with Stephen Miller, catching the LMGT3 of Alan Holden. Stephen Miller is quicker through the first sector. While we were elsewhere, Matthew Overton stopped on track on lap 44. Issues for Alan Holden in LMGT3. We rejoin the hypercar AM action. Chad Grutius running P1. The camera finds Chad Grutius in the hypercar AM. The camera settles on Alan Holden in the LMGT3. On board with Daniel Kirby in the hypercar. Gilles Lalonde had a significant problem on lap 51. Here's what we missed. Back live in hypercar, JT Tummy now P2. Cameras on JT Tummy in the hypercar. LMGT3 Alan Holden in trouble. Onboard camera on Alan Holden in the LMGT3. Here's the replay. And we're back live, hypercar, and Chad Grutius up to P1. Tracking Chad Grutius in the hypercar AM. Let's look back at when Alan Holden came to a halt on lap 47. We rejoin the hypercar action. Daniel Kirby running P1. On board once more with Daniel Kirby in the hypercar. We'll keep an eye on Norm Graf's situation. On board with Matthew Overton in the LMGT3. Norm Graf has problems in Hypercar AM. The camera finds Norm Graf in the Hypercar AM. Our camera's on Chad Gratius in the Hypercar AM. Race complete. On to cool down. Daniel Kirby takes the Hypercar win. Second in Hypercar goes to JT and Tammy. P3 in Hypercar, Johnny Gutierrez. Victory in Hypercar AM for Chad Gratius. Runner-up in Hypercar AM, Carl Struhol. Third in Hypercar AM is Norm Graf. Michael Lott wins the LMGT3. Max Sumterlap finishes P2 in LMGT3. Paul Ibbotson rounds out the LMGT3 podium.
I still have to finish a lap.
Checkered flag for Olivier Gervais in LMGT3 AM. Second in LMGT3 AM goes to Stephen Miller. P3 in LMGT3
I know I'm
AM.
not the slowest.
Daryl Kruger. Gilles Londholm P4 in Hypercar AM. Our coverage of NARS Virtual Modern Sports Car Championship on Champion Motorsport and Storm Gang Simulation comes to a close. Thanks for joining us. Filling out the Hypercar AM order, P5 Lanny Hall. On to the rest of the LMGT3 field, P4 Alan Holden.
So did I actually finish yet? Even though I got disconnected before I crossed the finish line?
Are you out on track?
I'm about to go out on track.
It shows you. It shows you. It shows you DQ.
Sorry, Daniel and Chad, congrats for the win in the Hypercar. Mika Locke, well done. Looks good for you in the win. And then right behind you, well, 2 laps behind, is Olivier, who's second overall in the GT3s and top of the AM. So well done.
Wow.
And I've got Jerry, Tom, and Eric. Why did you DQ?
So I got disconnected before I actually finished my last lap. So I assumed that I had to join the server and finish my last lap. But apparently the track was already red, so that DQ'd me because I exited the pits under red, even though I never actually finished the race because I had been disconnected.
All right. You were 9 laps, so you were behind. You were in.
I think it was
17. I think.
Yeah, 5th in class. I think.
Yeah, 5th.
I was
class.
I was ahead of you.
We'll get
Matt.
you back up there.
Yeah,
I'll just
okay.
adjust it.
Thanks,
That's not right.
Well, I know
I've
one
never
thing.
gotten disconnected at all, let alone twice in one race.
Well, there you go. That's your luck.
You can't
From
take your
P2.
eyes off of this track for not even a second.
No.
Yeah,
Or the
when I
cars
did,
are
I
There was
blew
a
it.
bunch of those sync issues tonight.
Yeah.
And that accounts for my 2 offs. I was on the track and then